when you're in it, you don't know it. You really have to hustle. You have to hustle in every aspect of what you're doing. We have the opportunity to capture a new audience. It's important that entertainers and promoters want to come to our building because it's a great experience. All right.
Josh Elias.
Yes.
It's nice to have you on the Get Busy podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate
It is super cool to be in a tequila tasting room this early in the morning. Like if you need breakfast tequila, your shot of breakfast tequila, it's like right over here.
It's available. Bars open.
It is.
So
we're at the Calafino tasting room in Oceanside, right?
Yes.
Like we're in Oceanside.
We're in Carlsbad, actually.
Carlsbad.
In North County, San Diego.
It's just really, really cool. And you are really cool. And your story is really interesting. This is Josh Elias, Frontwave Arena, serial entrepreneur, leadership expert, strategist, operational knower of things. And, you know, like your latest venture is Frontwave Arena. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? And then let's talk about like, how the hell did you figure out that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story. So I'll kind of give you the 1,000-foot version of how we got into this. But we are the owners and operators, importantly to know that as well, of Frontwave Arena, which is a 7,500 seat multi-use sports and entertainment facility in Oceanside, California. So, you know, what we have built is something in between a smaller venue and a large venue. All privately funded, all privately developed, and then, you know, at the same time built the management team to run the arena. So that's where we sit today.
So go back to what you said just a second ago. You said it's very important distinction that you are the owner operator, right? Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, typically what you'll see in a project like this is a developer will come in, they'll entitle land, they'll design, they'll build a venue, and then turn it over to a very large management company to operate the venue. And what you get in that is an operator who then is operating, many different facilities and really working through economies of scale to manage the building, which becomes a little bit cookie cutter, so to say, because if you're managing 50, 60 of these, you're going to do things very similar to each one to get those economies of scale. So for us, we own and operate it to where we can make decisions that might be a little different than, some of the larger operators out there.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about did you grow up dreaming that you would be the owner operator of an arena?
No.
Okay. So how did you come to this point?
Well, my story and my path is completely unique. I did not come from the sports or entertainment business. I was in the auto repossession business for 25 years. So definitely a different perspective.
Did you ever see Repo Man?
I did.
Okay,
I did. All fake, iconic. By the way, not real, right. But the concept
really?
Is there.
Oh man, you're crushing my dreams.
I'm so sorry.
Man.
But I've been self-employed, virtually my entire career for 25 years in that business, and built from scratch, our companies, which were nationwide management companies for banks. So we're not necessarily the people in the field repossessing the vehicles, but we would contract with those companies, pick up the cars, transport, liquidate, and really act as the middman between. But
it was your own company,
yes,
right? So you had sort of entrepreneurial roots. You may have been repo manning, but you understood what it takes to be self-sufficient as a business person.
Absolutely. And imagine in that industry, it's not very rewarding. It's very challenging.
No, I would think it would be soul crushing. And so to go from the, Repo Man, who was that? Emilio Estevez?
It was, yeah.
Okay,
80s, right?
Gen X, man. To go from that to the joyousness you must feel with an arena where you entertain and you inform and you delight 7,500 people. So, okay, so you're a repo man. And then how did you get?
I sold my business in 2016 and, I came in as an investor on this project with my good friend, Phil Salvaggio, really just as an investor, really, because this wasn't my area of expertise. But my area of expertise is really just building companies and operating and really putting the pieces together. So, as I came in as an investor, because I had sold my business, I had some time. And, I really made a decision in 2020 to re-identify myself.
Yeah.
And, that's when I focused on real estate development, entitlement of land, venue design, management, and then built the company to operate it. So it really was just an evolution of, hey, listen, I think there's a lot of common sense in this industry. And, I come from a very challenging industry where you're only as good as your last repossession. And, it's the bottom of the shoe. Nobody wants to deal with the person taking the car in the field, and, the banks, it's not very glorious for them. Coming from that business and coming into this, there was a lot of things that crossed over, and really they were common sense. So,
So what, that's interesting, because you wouldn't think of that. What are the things that crossed over?
Well, I mean, any business type of modeling, right? So I'm building a pro forma to operate and build and design within a budget, right?
Yeah.
It's no different whether you're making a widget or repossessing cars or you're building an arena. It's the same concept of, I can spend this much dollars, and I have to have the best product for that. And what did make us different, because we were privately owned and operated, was we got to make the decisions on every single thing that went into that building. So you'll see a lot of personal touch in there.
Yeah.
But everything that we did was very intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's super important what you just said, right? And maybe you can go a little deeper on it, but talking about, when entrepreneurs, it's very dreamy, right? Very emotional, right? These ideas that founders and, wannabe startups, it's this emotional thing. But it also has to be practical,
yes,
right? And what you were just talking about is you're the business modeling, knowing your numbers, know the budget, right? Talk about how important that is as a serial entrepreneur.
It's critical. Everybody wants to be self-employed. It's glorious,
Yeah.
right? You make your own hours, you make
freedom.
You
Yeah,
can make all the money in the world, but
Right.
what you don't realize, it's your money. You're writing the checks.
Yeah.
And typically you're not getting any back for a while. So, as we were going through the process, yes, we were writing the checks. So I'll give you a great example. During COVID in 2021, this is a majority steel building, right? And if you remember the ports right during COVID, right after COVID, they were all backed up in Long Beach and in Los Angeles. Well, what are on those ships are steel, are steel.
Yeah.
So we had to make a decision very early on whether to purchase and pre-purchase the steel a couple of years ahead of time, in fear that we may not be able to get it on time, or we may pay triple. So as you think about the decisions that are made, you have to write big checks betting on the future of what you're doing. And so you have to take those type of risks. And we did. And thank goodness we did, because we didn't have the issue of having the materials, and we were able to keep the costs where we wanted it. If we would have waited 2 years, it would have been triple in cost. And I don't know if we would have been able to finish the arena.
Right.
So those kind of decisions are important.
Yeah, but that's, that side of the pre-planning, the strategy, the operational, that is so important for startups and founders. And a lot of these startups that I talk to in interviews, especially in Silicon Valley, right? They're so interested. And so the goal for them is the exit, right? Their exit, make money, make multiples of money, that they don't really think through the realities of, a building. You built a building, like the Romans did for entertainment, for the Colosseum, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And you think you just can open the doors and people are going to flock in. And, unfortunately, this is the real world, and it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It takes a tremendous amount of resources, great people, and a little bit of luck along with it. And I think you do build your own luck, but you really have to hustle, and you have to hustle in every aspect of what you're doing. And I think we are the epitome of that. If you look at how we did this, who we did it with, and the challenges we had going through the process, there was a lot of decisions that had to be made that I don't know if many people could make those decisions and could stomach them. And
what mistakes did you make? Did you make poor decisions in the process before you opened the doors and everybody came running in?
Some of the challenges we had were, design flaws, maybe, wanting something. Let's say you want to produce a concert and, you design something, but find out later that maybe that's not going to work. So you have to go in and re-engineer it. And that is very hard to do in a 170,000 square foot building that is predominantly steel, and it's a big project. So things like that, having good consultants who you can trust that will come in and advise you properly, but really just keeping your finger on the pulse. And I think that's what made us different. Is I come from a very transactional business, right? We were picking up 25,000 cars a month. So you got to imagine how much metal that is moving and, transporting. So here it's very transactional as well, but we were able to pay attention to the details and be very intentional on the things that we wanted to do, and, be suited to make good decisions and hard decisions. That's to me, a lot of these decisions are hard to make.
Yeah.
And typically what I see in business, even people who are in business for themselves have a hard time making critical decisions. And it's maybe because they're just not mentally prepared to make those.
Right.
But if you've been in business long enough and you use a lot of common sense and you surround yourself around good people, it's those decision-making points that really are critical.
And we were just talking before we started rolling about, okay, so you built this arena, 7,500 people, and you now have arena football, right? And it's a concert venue. What else do you do with this building? And then let's talk a little bit about like the whole influencer marketing approach that you're taking. But first of all, all right, you're in, San Diego County. Talk to me about how you decide what you're going to put, what acts, what sports, how do you know? Did you know before you built it, or did you build it and then say, yeah?
Well, little of both.
Yeah.
I mean, so, we walk into this looking at the venue as a 50% sports, 50% entertainment.
Okay.
Well, what does that mean? What is the sausage that goes into it, right? One thing that we did know as we were building is that we own the soccer team. So for sure.
That's a slam dunk.
Yes, for sure. And the goal really by building the arena was for the San Diego Soccer. So knowing you have one tenant in the building is great. And then as we build it, we're thinking about how do we fill our sports book? And so, spent a lot of time going to different arenas, looking at how people set up their arenas, the different types of sports leagues out there. And then fortunate enough that we caught the Los Angeles Clippers at a very good time where they were looking to relocate from Ontario, California, where they weren't doing very well from an attendance standpoint. I think they're averaging something like 500 people a game. There was no money going into it. Really, that team was a developmental team for the Los Angeles Clippers. And so at that time, we looked at a way to structure our deal with the Los Angeles Clippers in a different way. So we have a hybrid model with them where we actually run and operate the team. We do everything except for the players, coach, and travel.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So for us, we have a different dynamic, on how we're operating the team versus them just coming in as a rental partner.
Right. Right. And what about the music side of your business? How do you the demographic? We were talking earlier with Robert, our production manager, and the culture from LA down here to wherever we are, San Diego area, Carlsbad, it's very, very different, right?
It is.
So how do you go about building a community of, venue enthusiasts for different types of, you said earlier, it's Latin music is a big draw for you guys.
So far Latin, country has been big as well. Country as well.
Really?
So, the way we see it, we're sitting in an area right here with nothing around us. I mean, there's nothing within 45 minutes from a venue standpoint.
Right.
So, we have the opportunity to capture a new audience. And like you mentioned, is there a different vibe and culture between the Los Angeles consumer and the San Diego consumer? Absolutely. I think there is. And it's hard to identify, but there definitely is a difference in culture. We're right in the middle between downtown San Diego and downtown Los Angeles, so we can pick and choose where we want to be. But the main thing here is to create a culture and a vibe that really resonates to the, call it 2 million people within a handful of miles from here. And how do we service them?
Right.
And we service them by doing a few things. Sports is very important. But also having entertainment on the other side. And we're starting to see, as we're in our 6th, 7th month of operations, we have a lot of crossover within those fans. That consumer really, if we get a sports consumer, we're going to probably see them on the entertainment side. They like the music. And, because we are so intimate, we're able to get a lot of feedback from the fan. And it's important that we can cross over those fans, because this isn't downtown Los Angeles where there's 7 million people within 30 miles, right? So we have to really capture our audience and make sure we're marketing to them properly and giving them what they want to see. And, as we go along, we're learning, and I think we're doing great. I think we've had 13 concerts so far. We're finishing up our second season here. We got the San Diego Sockers and the San Diego Clippers in our last month of season, and then the football starts here in a few months or a few weeks.
You said 6 or 7 months of operation.
Yeah, we opened September 16th with Simone Biles' Gold Over America tour, which was amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That is insane. I think that coming from LA, we were shooting in LA earlier this week and making the drive down here, tootling along the coast. This is a really special area. You know what I mean? It is different, completely different than LA. It is different than Orange County, right? And so, that, is there something to be said for destination, right? Is there an angle of, this is so special, people will make the trip from, LA down to Carlsbad? The
consumer is the one that will tell you the truth.
Because I would do that. I would make that insane drive just to, experience the landscape and the culture change. It's just chill down here.
And one of the things we have unique here being in Oceanside is Oceanside is a booming beach town.
Yeah.
And it's very affordable still. So
is it really?
Yes, definitely. So what we're seeing is a lot of destination travel.
Yeah.
So let's say you are coming from Los Angeles and you want to see a concert or a game. Well, the whole goal here is to, try to keep you here overnight, go to a game, but also enjoy downtown Oceanside or Carlsbad or Encinitas and create a little vacation out of it. And that creates the destination that we're looking to achieve.
Because there's a train too. You can just jump on that super cool train and come down the coast and
drops you off right in front of the arena. There's a lot of different aspects to what we're doing on the space that we're on, but really downtown Oceanside has a lot to do with it. If you haven't been to Oceanside lately,
I haven't.
It's pretty amazing. It's got a vibe, a lot of youth, a lot of bars, a lot of cool restaurants. We have a Michelin restaurant there downtown, 2 amazing hotels. Wow. Oceanside isn't the Oceanside of old. Oceanside has changed quite a bit, and it's really starting to boom.
And one of the strategies that you're using, and we were talking about a little earlier, is the whole influencer marketing, right? Which is kind of a new phenomenon over the last, I don't know, let's call it 5 or 6 years, but really kind of becoming the main, sort of a main strategy for branding and PR and communication and product placement, basically. How are you doing your marketing with influencers? How does that work?
We use traditional organic marketing strategies, right, with our paid media. But really what we wanted to do from the beginning was we understood that we were a new venue in a new place. I would say even as of today, there are 30% of the people in Oceanside that don't even know we exist. Yeah. And you can go and spend a fortune out there going to every billboard or having street teams out there teaching people. But what you're really going to get is you need people in the building, right? Yeah. And, for us, we were very intentional on our influencer strategy because we knew we were new and we would get, let's say, 2,000 or 3,000 people to a game. But if I can bring in enough people, celebrities, influencers, A-listers to these games and create this environment, this upscale premium environment, and have them there where they're all, sitting, having a great time, creating content. They have 100 to 200,000 followers. Now I'm able to spread out a little bit wider. And the whole goal is just to bring people in the building. We feel like we get you in the building, then you're aware you're coming back. And we've seen that not only with the fan, but we've also seen that with promoters, and the same thing on the music side. So promoters want to go places that their entertainers want to go to, that are functional and have the ability to fill the house. And we've been able to do that very early on. So it's important that entertainers and promoters want to come to our building because it's a great experience. And so that's what we use our influencer programs for. And we really just lean in on it because I just don't see a lot of people doing it the way that we're doing it. And we understand we're a minor league sports type of venue. We don't have an NBA team here. We have a G League NBA team. We're not going to have, NFL football here. So we have to capture and look at things the way that, they are in the real world. And we've done a great job with that. And it's part of doing all the little things right and being intentional with it.
And it's a community experience, right? And so how are you reaching out or connecting, not just with big influencers, but with the local community? Like, what is that strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a great example of our food and beverage strategy. We went out and we brought in all local restaurants.
Oh, okay.
People who are familiar with the restaurants within the town, and now they're in the arena. You can get regular arena fare, but we bring in Tanner's Prime Burger, which is one of the best burgers here in North County, San Diego. Well, now you can go to the arena and get one of those. Or, our famous Seaside Market product, Cardiff Crack, is probably the most renowned tri-tip that you can get here in San Diego. And the fact that you can go to Frontwave Arena and get a Cardiff Crack nacho or a sandwich it just blows people away. So bringing the community in also has to do not just with the entertainment or the sport, but it has to do with the whole experience, which is the food and beverage, and create an elevated experience with it, and doing it from the beginning the right way. So we partnered with a gentleman who did this for Petco, and that really changed the game in MLB and in where you're going to see craft food at, big baseball and football stadiums. So being intentional with that is very important to the community aspect to it, because then you get people to go back into the community and they get to go experience those things in the community as well as in the arena.
Right. Yeah. And it's that whole experience, like the experiential part of, doing something like anything really. But when your customers and your community, can come together and have a shared experience with local cuisine or, Califino tequila or whatever might be the local specialty, it is something very, very special. And I want to go back. You said when you were talking about your influencer marketing strategy and, marketing and branding, organic, paid, whatever the approach is, it is so, so critical. And you said we are very intentional with our influencer marketing. So can you explain a little bit about what that means?
Sure. We're looking at every demo, right? And who do we bring in there that's going to reach an audience that we want? So a great example last night, we had a big ceremony for the Women's in Sports Association and, really focused in on that. And so we had a number of members from the USA softball team, from the USA soccer team, and we really highlight them there. And we want to put them on the pedestal because there are a lot of young people and adults there that recognize them.
Yeah.
And it's important that they see these influencers who are part of beacons of our community at these type of events. Even on a Tuesday night where we had a couple thousand people, slow night, you still have these people coming to these events. And so what we've seen is a lot of our fans come to our games now expecting to see people, and that's meaningful to them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot. It just takes effort, right? And I think that because we are a smaller venue, we're privately owned and operated, we can do the little things that probably the big guys don't spend the time to do.
Right. So for entrepreneurs who are listening to your story and are inspired by your story, like what is your, like you know so much about strategy and building businesses from the ground up. What is do you have like one or two chunks of advice you would pass on to, an entrepreneur, someone in the very early stages of a startup?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I learned over the course of time as I got older as well was to be patient.
Yeah.
You
have a very patient vibe, right?
Well, I'm not always that. It's not always that way, but I'm telling you, in my younger career, especially the business I was in, very fast moving, typically the people aren't calling in to congratulate you and give you Christmas cards. You're being yelled at for, taking something from them that was their livelihood.
I mean, you were a repo man.
I was a repo.
You're going to piss people
stole
off.
cars for a living, right? But for me, I had to learn patience, and I had to learn not only patience with the customer, but with the staff and just with the process as a whole. And I see a lot of young people out there who really want it now. And I think that's part of the new, generations that are here. And, I have kids. I have a 23-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old daughter, and I see how impatient they are. They want the instant gratification, which I did too. But you have to have good mentors, and I did have great mentors through my process. But to have the patience to be able to make good decisions and not be reactive, I think that's one of the most important things, especially if you're capitalizing the business yourself and you're responsible ultimately for decision making. So the patience component of it. And then the other part is just don't do too much. I see a lot of people who, are chasing dollars, right? And they're chasing this dream, which is great. But I see them start to spread themselves out thin, and they don't become masters of one. They become okay at many different things, and it just doesn't work. So, and this may just work for me because I have my partner who does 20 different things at a time, and that works for him. But for me, I really like to focus in on one or two things, really spend my time and energy on those two things and be really good at them. So if at the end of the day, I can walk away and I can say, hey, I put everything into this. I thought about everything, and fortunately for me, doing it this way has been successful for me. So I'm definitely not going to change it at this point in my life or my career. But, for us, this is a legacy project. This wasn't meant to be a flip. This wasn't meant to be a exit type of vehicle for us. This was a legacy project where, the three partners involved in this really want to hand this off to our children. And, we want to have a great time doing it for the next 20 years. And, so far we're doing that. And again, just being patient, not overreacting, and, really trying to service the consumer and the fan and build a team that, has the same culture.
Yeah. It's really cool to talk to a serial entrepreneur who is interested in a legacy. You know what I mean? Like, legacy is the forgotten part of entrepreneurship, right? Like when you build something, and entrepreneurs that, you build, and it's frenetic pace and all of this, but there's something really beautiful about leaving a legacy, no matter what it is, whether it's an arena or a story, or, something meaningful and purposeful in all of the shit that you go through as an entrepreneur, right? It is a hard row to hoe, it's very, very challenging. Talk to me a little bit, like really quickly, about your, you said you had mentors around you. Like, how do you, for entrepreneurs, I think it's very important, right? Like you need that net. How did you find your mentors?
Just early on gravitated towards somebody that, I really aspired to be, and it had nothing to do with business. It really had to do with personality, right? You look at somebody who may be older than you. I was 21 years old. I moved to Vegas.
That's pretty good.
I moved to Vegas on my 21st birthday. I thought that was a great idea. Nobody else did, but I thought it was a great idea. And then, I met somebody who I really looked up to, and it was more of a personality trait. And I wanted to be that type of a communicator, right? And over the course of the process, we built a business, and, when you're in it, you don't know it, right? Yeah. And so now, as I've done this a few times and, exited a few times, now I take a step back and look at how am I mentoring people? And if you look at our staff, it's relatively young. We have an average of maybe 25 to 35-year-olds, that are really building their career. And because of who we are, we'll take chances on those young, youthful talent because we were that, and we want to train them into our way. And that's worked really well. And we're just at the very beginning of it. But, we want to show the path, and we want people to, be aggressive towards it, but also learn it the right way.
Yeah. So how do you inspire that group of young talent? Like, what is your leadership style to create excellence in every single person that works for you?
Yes. It's a challenge because there's a lot of personalities. One thing that's easy about this is that we're creating something cool, right? You walk in, last night we had a game, all the work has already been done. It is
cool, isn't it?
It is
right?
So
it's
cool.
Just like it's a built-in cool factor.
You're asking me who did something completely different. Yes, it's absolutely cool. And I think that resonates to everybody because the work has already been done. When the game starts, there's not much we're going to do. Everything has already been prepared. Now we just have to execute. I think part of it is we have a coolness about what we do. And, we try to give these leaders the ability to kind of pay their path. Ultimately, we want to hear the creativeness, but again, teaching them the business side of it too. It doesn't matter if you're in the marketing department or the community department or facility operations. We always bring everybody back to the business part of it, because you can sit and make decisions all day long, invest in resources, but if it doesn't work out to a P&L, then it doesn't make sense. So I really try to spend the time to bring everybody back, which is to reality, which is really, how is the business doing? And that's really the livelihood of every employee, right? That's how they get paid.
Right.
And, people are money motivated, and we want to put out there that the better the business does, the better everybody does. So everybody essentially in our company has an incentive, right? And that's really the carrot that we want to have out there. And the better the arena does, the better everybody does.
Yeah. It's such a great story, Josh. And I am so grateful for your time today.
Of course.
And, it's never too early for a shot of tequila. If you're, we're right here at the bar. So thank you so much. And I wish you so much success. You're so chill. Like, I feel chill just sitting across from
thank you.
So
ask me in an hour. No, I'm just kidding. But I do encourage everybody to, listen to the different ways that people can do this. And there's not one right way. And the thing I've always told everybody is there's no silver bullet in any business. If you feel like there is one, then you're probably not doing it right.
Right.
It's going to take hustle, and it's going to take hard work, and you have to always out hustle everybody else. And that's one thing I can tell you that we do here. And it really resonates not only with our customers, but our fans. And they know that when they call, we pick up the phone. And I think there's just some fundamentals that haven't changed over the course of time. A lot of things have changed, but there's a lot of things that are fundamental that haven't changed. And I think, if you can get the young entrepreneurs out there to understand that and be patient and find the right mix, I think that's where you'll find success.
Yeah. And you can be patient and also have hustle.
You should have both.
Right.
Yes.
And never, ever, ever lose your hustle.
Absolutely.
Or your patience, really.
Yeah, right? They go together.
Yeah, they hand in hand.
Yeah.
Awesome.